Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to Gantry TV and to the third round of the RTA British Touring Car Championship season in partnership with Motorsport.ie. My name is Kevin Galvin, and as you can see with the sign in front of you, we have gone to Snetterton for the third round of this season in the county of Norfolk. Plenty of puns, I'm sure, along the way. So we are back at Snetterton for the first time in quite a while in an RTA season, following an action-packed week last week as we headed to Donington Park. Dan Mould certainly making his reintroduction into RTA in fine fashion, winning the opening heat. But plenty of talking points as well. Dave McGoldrick, he's an Irish football player. Conor McGoldrick, no, try again. Sean McGoldrick, making making as much of a meal of race 3 as I made of that introduction, and causing absolute chaos on the opening lap of the final heat. Plenty of door bashing as things heat up here in the RTA season as we head to our third race of the calendar. We started at Brands Hatch in the county of Kent, and then we headed up to Donington Park for our second round. Now we head east to Norfolk and to the Snetterton circuit, the 300 variation of the track. A very well-known British touring car circuit with just under 5 kilometres long, 12 turns. Felipe Nasr, the now IMSA driver in a Dallara F3, delivering the goods with a 139.933. But obviously, as we always say, the timings for the cars this evening will be slightly slower, but in a class that is delivered plenty of action thus far. And no doubt as we head to Snetterton, plenty of long straights here, Evan. It's going to bring a huge amount of bump drafting and indeed some draft opportunities as well.
It absolutely is. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Kevin. Thank you very much for having me back. It is a very interesting circuit, and it is sort of maybe the middle ground of the two we had at the earlier stages of the season. Brands Hatch and Donington, both very much opposite Snetterton, somewhere in the middle. It's a nice sunny day here in Norfolk, the county that likes to break my heart every week with their football teams. But this is a fabulous track, the 300 configuration of this circuit. Last time we were here, it was Ronan dominance in the Formula V's, where he clean swept the evening and took all 3 race wins. He's not going to have it as easy tonight.
No, absolutely not. And it's going to be a really interesting one. You can pretty much ignore Peter McCann's lap there. That is not a legal lap. So you can focus on Ronan Doherty leading us out with a 158.523. And then Oscar Mangan won 158.563. Let's have a quick reminder of where we stand in the championship as we look at that very famous tree in Snetterton, which always reminds me a little bit of the Yeti. Oscar Mangan leading at 154 points, followed by the boy from Dunloy, as Evan likes to call him, Ronan Doherty. 15 penalty points means he's on 135, which gives you an idea of how close these guys are. Brandon McGahan in third, having a very good season, despite some incidents in the last race in Donington Park, followed by Robbie Callahan, who hasn't been on the podium yet this year, if I'm right in saying, but just consistent performances have seen him within the top 4. Then Dylan McClemens, followed by Evan Walsh, followed by Jordan Kelly, the man who took the win last week in heat number 3. No, it's not. Sorry. Anyway, I'll get back to it. Keith Stewart on 75 points, then Conor Melia on 73, and Dan Mould, as we said, missed race 1 already with 68 points after just the second round. So, Evan, he might be 10th in the standings, but he's already putting himself in as a championship contender.
Yeah, absolutely, and we have the drop rounds to come later on in the season as well, so Dan Mould will be a big beneficiary of that one. Oscar Mangan leads the standings, ahead of Doherty in second. I think that's the first ever time one of my nicknames has catched on, so chuffed with that, Kevin. Thank you very much. Brandon McCaughan and Robbie Callahan, both very under the radar so far this season. Brandon McCaughan, of course, picking up 2 podiums in the first week in Brands Hatch, 2 third places. And Robbie Callahan, as you rightly said, no podium so far, but has had steady results although I don't think we've mentioned them as championship contenders, so to speak, so far this season, they're up there. They're well within their rights to be up there, and with strong practice pace, could put it in amongst the front runners this evening.
Yeah, could very much be amongst the front runners. You look at what's going on already, and of course, let's not forget we have two sets of championships that we're having a look at, because we have a B championship as well, which has a former RTA winner, championship winner in it, of course, in the form of Finlay Melvin. But Dave Collier on 61, then Finlay on 44, Simon Hutchings on 37. Danny Dempsey on 26, 15 penalty points for him, followed by his namesake Emma on 24, who unfortunately got caught up in what was a really, really bad accident at the beginning of race 3 when she was hit from behind by McGoldrick and then sent flying across the track and caused a sort of a bowling ball effect. Jacob Hobbs, P6, then Simon Wall, P7 on 21, David Prunty, Andrew Murphy and Philip Upson leading up the B standings. Interested to see Finlay Melvin, obviously a former championship winner, but he's not top of the B standing thus far.
Finlay Melvin championship winner is a bit of a scary sentence to say from time to time, isn't it? He's not top of the B championship. However, he is having a good season so far. He's actually beat his LMP2 championship total. Or sorry, not LMP2, F4 championship total. He's already beaten it. He scored 43 points last season. He's currently on 44, albeit he did actually score 106 points last season, but 63 of them were taken away in penalty points. So he has beaten the total technically. So it's a more consistent start to the season for Finlay, and he will really be targeting that B championship victory. The B championship is just a great initiative overall. It gives those guys something to fight for, and look, we're delighted to have it back, and it's just another talking point for these gantry streams. But qualifying underway, drivers not going to get as much laps certainly as they got in Brands Hatch. It is about a 2-minute lap time around here. We saw 1:58.6 being the quickest in practice, so I expect these guys to go about a tenth of a second under that.
Yeah, there is plenty of time left, and the track temperature is reasonably high at the moment. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Jordan Kelly could be somebody who could very much put himself up amongst the running, because he is starting to pick up pace in that number 2 car. And in the Audis, they're always very quick off the line, despite the fact that, as Evan alluded to last week, they don't have a clutch. But they do have a sort of a launch system, which means that, and a shorter gear ratio, which means they're quick off the line. So, especially around here at Snetterton, being quick off the line and holding an advantage can very much be an advantage, especially if you can get a good exit down onto that back long straight. You can start to carve out an advantage for yourself. And with the laps, we talked about, we were 2 weeks ago, we were in Brands Hatch Indy. Very, very short lap times there, but now we have a much longer lap time, almost 2 minutes a lap. So it means that, especially for the shorter races, you're not going to have a huge amount of practice doing the same corners again and again and again. So it just means that guys are not going to have quite as much time to get to grips with this almost 5 kilometre long 300 circuit.
Yeah, and the car differentiation has been a bit of a big talking point so far this season, and we actually have our first example of someone being so unhappy with their car that they've decided to change it. After his near traumatizing start to the season, Sean McClemens hasn't switched his brand allegiance, but he has switched his car allegiance, and he's gone from the Elantra to the Veloster. Now, the repercussion of that is he loses all his championship points, but given how poorly the first 2 rounds went, he only had 2 anyway, so it is worth the sacrifice of maybe being more comfortable throughout the remaining 6 rounds of the season. That's very interesting, because we haven't seen too many complaints from drivers this season about their car choice, but it could be something we see across the rest of the campaign. We could see someone who's near the bottom of the championship decide to swap their car and all of a sudden be a front runner. I'm kind of reaching for that because it's not realistic, but it is what you get when we don't run equal cars. We have a difference, and to be honest, it's what makes this British Touring Car Championship here in RTA quite different from the other championships, and quite exciting in one way.
Yeah, absolutely, in lots of ways. And obviously the band's performance is evened out here, but it comes down to driving style. The Veloster does rotate a little bit easier than the Elantra, has more, I suppose, like it's kind of easier to catch as well, which is good for Sean given his woes, especially last week. So yeah, maybe sometimes these things can just be a mental block. Sometimes you just get on with one car better than you do with the others. I'm sure if I got into any of the other TCR cars that weren't an Audi, I wouldn't be quite as happy because I've gotten so accustomed to driving the Audi and the TCRs now. It'd be very difficult for me to drive anything else. So it's just down to personal preference. Speaking of outside championship contenders, Wayne Douglas is back on the grid this evening. Missed last week. We had a look at him there in the number 20 car. He's somebody who is a real TCR specialist and could do exceptionally well in this championship. Dan Mould up there again now in the 50s. So you can see now it's qualifying session. Oscar Mangan leading Dan Mould, both in the 58s. But Dan mentioned it last week on stream when we were talking to the driver behind that 62 Honda Civic, that he's not driving a Honda Civic, he's driving a Hyundai a Veloster. He's actually driving a Veloster, not a Honda Civic. Looked like a Honda Civic to me. It's a problem with the letter H appearing on 3 of the 4 cars. Dan alluded to Wayne Douglas's pace and the potential for him to be involved in the championship. Now, Dan has had his drop round, and Wayne has had his drop round. So hopefully we'll see these two guys every week from now until the end of the season when we finish at Brands Hatch GP circuit in a couple of weeks' time. We will see. Here is Sean McGoldrick pulling off circuit, so he's not quite getting to grips with that. And am I right in saying he switched from a Veloster to the Elantra and not the other way around? Because that looks like more like a saloon than a hatchback to me.
I'm not too sure about that one. I have him in the Elantra on my notes, but to be brutally honest, I still can't quite tell the difference between the two. I just know they're both Hyundais. Certainly he'd lose all of his championship points with Sean McGoldrick if he did swap, and given he is 14th in the championship with 54 points, that would be an interesting decision to make. Wonder how good he is around Snetterton. Well, thankfully we can find out, because we do have a fabulous onboard lap from Sean McGoldrick last night in practice to ride on board with Duffman. Going to be lapping around the 2.9 mile circuit in towards the first corner then. Some fabulous corner names on this track. This is Riches in through turn number 1, long sweeping right hand. It was very sketchy in the Formula V's, but not as bad here in the TCRs. Then it's in towards the Montreal hairpin. You can see the fabulous piece of artwork on the exit of that corner, as Kevin mentioned in the pre-show. It's down towards a bit of a middle sweeping left-hander. You're going to take this one in third gear. As you can see, Sean just downshifting very late, using all that curve on the inside, rotate all the way onto the AstroTurf on the outside of the corner and get ready for the Agostini hairpin of turn number 4. Very late on the brakes, not really an overtaking opportunity, but it can muddle up your run through the whole next sector. Run it all the way out to that curve, but not too far because the grass approaches quickly. It's the quick flick left through Hamilton, turn number 5. Not Lewis Hamilton, but still named after many a famous motorsport Hamiltons. Then it is turn number 6, right-hander, first of 2 right-handers in towards the Williams corner. This leads on to the longest straight on the circuit. The 200 layout skips that whole middle section straight to this straight. At the longer variant here tonight. The Bentley straight, of course, it's a heavy braking corner in towards the Brundle and Nelson sections of turn number 8, turn number 9. You can see some passes on the inside here, but you've got to be very brave to do it in a touring car. As you can see, using all the curb on the inside. Avoid that big sausage curb on the outside, or you might send yourself on a little bit of a trip over the apex of the corner. Then there's the bomb hole corner, very aggressive. You got to be very aggressive on the turn in indeed, in 4th gear for practically most of this final sector. Just rotate it round through turn number 11. Try keep as close to full throttle as you can. Then it is the side left-hander of Murray's. Very easy to make a mistake through here. Sean McGoldrick doesn't. Clips the left-hander now. So we get some images put on screen. That wasn't planned. That was Jordan Kelly, folks.
Thanks so much to Jordan. All we're short of is being
That guide was
rickrolled at
going
this point.
so well as well until that point.
Yeah, you just got to lean into it really at this point, don't you? You don't have any choice. So yeah,
I don't think I've ever been as confused as when Sean McGoldrick comes through the final corner and all of a sudden I see Peter McCann on my screen. I have never been that confused in my life.
And I do believe this is the last time that Ronan Hederman is going to be putting anything on stream without looking at it before he puts it online. But yeah, that is an altogether different type. I actually, you know what? Can we just have a look at that again? Like just the last couple of seconds of it. I
It was
mean,
me on Evan Walsh's car again. That's all I spotted.
as Sean, yeah, giving us a great example. I didn't mean the whole thing. Just. Oh, there we go. There it is. You can actually see it there on screen, up by the rear view mirror. Yeah. Yep.
Funnily enough, these are all Peter McCann influenced, by the way. Because he took like 3 of those photos, and he's in the other one, so it's all Peter McCann influenced.
Outstanding. Right, what do we have left in the session? We have just about 3 minutes left, which means we have time for one flying lap. If you can get out, I think Keith Stewart might be struggling. He's on his out lap at the moment. The likes of Kevin Joyce, Simon Wall, Jamal Gondor, and Phil Upson won't be getting a lap in, but Oscar Mangan, Robbie Callahan, Dan Mould very much might. Robbie Callahan, very, like, he's really exceptionally quick here, Evan. I mean, he's in a star-studded top 5 at the moment, but he's more than holding his own is Robbie in the tri-coloured car.
Yeah, mixing it amongst the best here is Robbie Callahan, and that's what you've got to do if you want to be successful in RTA. Robbie has certainly showed pace at times, is a multiple RTA race winner, but he's never really shown himself to be a front runner for a long period of time. He's trying to do so here in the British Touring Car Championship. Doesn't seem to be proving on this lap time, but it is a 1:48.6, which is almost, or no, sorry, it's not nearly the same time Oscar Mangan has set, because he's improved to a 58.4. So Mangan has set the benchmark even higher. Evan Walsh improves to 15th. It's currently Mangan, Callahan, Mould, Doherty, Douglas, the top 5. So Robbie Callahan, the only real outlier there. The other 4 we expected to be near the front.
Yeah, and great to hear from Ollie Meredith, who joins us back in the comments, looking to see when the F4 Championship started. Unfortunately, he needed a time machine to get involved in that one, but we do hope to see you back involved in RTA soon, Ollie. Do remember that you can still get involved if you want. Obviously, the season is ongoing, but there are always people dropping out over the course of the season. So if you do want to check that out, it is RTAvirtualmotorsport.com for that and everything else. And thanks as well to our partners, Motorsport.ie. Plenty of good news in the world of Irish motorsport this weekend. For the first time ever, we saw an Irishman topping the championship standings of the second tier of Formula Racing. So hopefully Alex Dunn has a couple of good races to go and he'll cement his place up towards the top. He's with a very competitive F1 team at the moment in McLaren, but he might find opportunities elsewhere if he continues the way he is. I know of a certain team that are really struggling for a second driver at the moment. No problem with the main driver, just trying to get a second driver in there seems to be the issue. Anyway, we're looking at the 23 car that does belong to Kevin Joyce of the First Corner team. 1500 iRacing on the dot has Kevin. So either we've caught him at a good time, or he just reached the 1500 and said, you know what, I'm done with officials now. I'm just gonna stick to hosted sessions and league racing. But Kevin, 14th position at the moment, just cracking under the 59s. Evan Walsh just behind him as well. Evan was quite on pace earlier on in the season, Evan, but this Evan struggling a little bit tonight.
Yeah, it's because he has me in the back of his car, for crying out loud. That's why he's lost all the pace, the imbecile. That's always going to be a bad omen. But what's Conor Melia just done in front of him? Conor, that's been caught in 1080p or even more, depending on whatever this stream is running in. Not a good moment for Conor Melia. Weaved in front of Evan Walsh and has spun it into the barriers. But no more improvements in qualifying. It's going to be Oscar Mangan on pole for the second time this season. Dan Mould down in 4th, was not able to go back-to-back pole positions to start his British Touring Car Championship season. It will be Robbie Callahan alongside him on the front row though, so a real opportunity for Callahan to take his first podium of the season. Ronan Doherty then will start in 3rd. ahead of Dan Mould in 4th, Wayne Douglas in 5th, ahead of Sean McGoldrick in 6th, then it will be Dylan McClements and Jordan Kelly in 7th and 8th. Keith Stewart starts 9th, he needs a little bit of Flavio Briatore launch control to get him off the line well here in heat number 1. Sean McClements in his new Hyundai in 10th, and it's Dara Halley, Conor Mealia, Brandon McCaugham, Kevin Joyce, Evan Walsh, Rory O'Shea, Tony Stack, Peter McCann, Dermot Toomey, Simon Hutchings. It's then Jacob Hobbs, Finlay Melvin, David Prunty, ahead of Dave Collier. Then it is Andrew Murphy, Simon Wall, Jamal Gantor, Phil Upson, Nathan Sweeney, and no time said from Danny Dempsey, who we're seeing in the comments isn't going to be making it to the grid. Very close qualifying. This should be a good one.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I'm disappointed by Danny saying that he's not, that he's too slow.
You should always race.
Yeah, exactly, and still has an opportunity in the B Championship, especially in the B Championship, where people do end up getting caught up in incidents. So there's always a good opportunity. Now that is a view I absolutely love to see. All different types. We've 4 different types of British touring car on the grid at the moment. Lots of different superb paints. Really, some of those paints that guys are running are really exceptional. Whatever about the ones that guys are getting off trading paints, but there's plenty of custom ones here too. Love Peter McCann's one. I love the VRA ones. I love Robbie Callahan's one. I think I pointed out my favorite earlier on this year, which was the Renault turned Hyundai. I think they stuck the Renault on it, but made it look like a Hyundai. I can't remember who exactly had that livery, but they're not racing anymore. But it is a superbly packed grid as we head for the opening race of the 3rd round of the British Touring Car Championship.
29 cars heading down to turn number 1 at Snetterton. This should be chaos as we go racing in Norfolk for the first time. Great start by Sean McClements. Keith Stewart is bogged down off the line once again and is falling down the order. Look at this from Wayne Douglas, trying it down the inside of 2 cars, and he has got it done. There's contact made. Dan Mould goes careering off the circuit and he's into the grass. Needs to try recover. Has gone falling down the order and he will file back on just behind Tony Stack potentially in 17th position. Oscar Mangan away very well indeed. 0.6 of a second race lead. Robbie Callahan in 2nd, Douglas in 3rd. It was a position lost at the start for Ronan Doherty, Jordan Kelly and Sean McClements both up 2.
Yeah, Douglas making a great start, and you could see with Mould the way he was attacking into that corner. It was always going to be very difficult for them to all pass without any incident. Bad start as well for Finlay Melvin. He's down 6 places in the battle for the B Championship, while Dan Moyle, should I say, is now down 10 places. He's just overtaken Kevin Joyce up to 14th now from 15th, but a bad start for Mould. Not entirely sure how that was ever going to work as it moved out the inside now on Conor Mealia by Mould in the 62 car. Gets that done on Conor Mealia. That's always going to be a difficult one. And behind him, the 81 of Rory O'Shea. And we haven't seen him on the grid this season. Rory slipping down the inside of Conor Mealia and getting it done for the Yellow Bellies of Wexford. We'll go back and have a look, if we can, at that opening lap incident once we get through this first lap here at Snetterton, with Oscar Mangan leading Robbie Callahan now by 0.5 of a second, and Wayne Douglas is a good start, but also, Evan, a great start for Robbie Callahan, 0.7 up now on Wayne Douglas, and profiting from some of the chaos behind him.
Yeah, great start from Robbie. Exactly what he needed. Just get a bit of confidence under his car, and now he can drive and try and attack Oscar Mangan. Great start for Jamal Gantor, up 7 positions to 20th position. There's usually the point where Jamal immediately crashes whenever I mention he's doing something positive, but you can see him rounding through there, and yep, he's okay. So he survived this commentator's curse. Here's Keith Stewart, going to try and regain some positions, although he is back up to 9th, but did lose some spots on the race start. Sean McGoldrick running a steady 5th. Andrew Murphy's lost a couple of spots, it seems, as there's a real shuffle in the middle of the pack. There is Andrew Murphy. Is that the Renault livery you were talking about, Kevin?
That's exactly the one I was talking about. Thank you very much.
There's Brandon McCaugham, able to get past Evan Walsh, side by side in towards the left-hander. This could be sketchy for Walsh, but he's going to try and hang it around the outside in the number 42 Mondello Park car, and he is right on the exit of the AstroTurf, using all of the track limits possible. Still on the outside for the next hairpin, so he's not been given the best lines, but he's broke a lot later than McCaugham, has ran a little bit too deep, and Dan Mould is going to try sneak up his inside. Evan Walsh, who's new to Fiesta racing, certainly not new to TCR racing, has been overtaken by one of the aces in these TCR cars, Dan Mould, and Mould looking to recover from that very poor race start.
Yeah, really poor. We'll have a look at it there now. Thanks to Ronan Hederman for his work in the background, as always. So, have a look at Wayne Douglas in that sort of pinky lilac coloured car. Gets down the inside of the 18 of Ronan Doherty, and then 3 are going into 1. Dan cuts across Ronan, and yeah, it's very difficult when you've 3 there. Dan will feel like he had the right into that corner, but really, I think a very aggressive line to head in there, and you have to be conscious that there are 2 other cars on your inside, and unfortunately for Mould, I think that's going to go down as a racing incident.
Yeah, I think it is, unfortunately. He might still have the stewards to have a look at it. That was very close between Mould and Walsh, and now Evan Walsh is defending from Rory O'Shea, as is Rory O'Shea running a very similar livery to Dan Mould. Are they teammates all of a sudden? I can't really tell, as I think this kind of breaks my heart to say it, but Rory O'Shea's not in the High Prix.
Rory is in an SRC sponsored car.
No,
Oh,
hold
no,
on,
it's an
that's still High
SRL.
Prix. It's
It
all
is
good. It's
SRL.
High Prix
Oh,
Sim
yeah.
Racing City. We're all good. He's still in the
Okay.
High Prix. My heart has been mended. Rory O'Shea is still racing for High Prix in the number
Okay.
81.
So
Yeah,
Rory
we're
is
all good.
SRC and Dan is SRL, and they have very similar colour schemes. So I do
They
completely
both look
understand
identical.
that. Dylan McClemens in the Team DDR car, this side down, I think is what those arrows are trying to say. Just a little reminder to Dylan to keep the rubber on the track and not pointing up in the air as he tries to hunt down Sean McGoldrick in the Duff Beer sponsored car. And Quickie Mark getting a little bit of a mention there as well. Yeah, I wonder what Apu would drive if he was to be in the series. But we can leave the comments down below. And do get involved if you do are watching. We love to hear where you're watching from and what you've been up to for the week. So do get in touch with us on the live chat. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, absolutely. Get involved, folks. We love to hear your thoughts, comments, opinions. We read them all out come Heat 2, Heat 3. So get them in plentiful, and we will read them. It's going to be a little bit of a brotherly battle here, it seems, between Dylan McClemens and Sean. Sean up 3 spots on the race start, so I don't want to put a jinx on it, but things looking a lot better in his new machinery. Here's Wayne Douglas in third, looking to attack Robbie Callahan. Callahan doing a mighty job here. He's not letting Oscar Mangan get too far in front, although 0.8 of a second is quite a lot in this field, and it's one of the largest gaps between 2 cars in this field. Callahan is still in sight of the Irish sim racing ace. Wayne Douglas right on his tail, though, and is going to be looking for the move down towards turn number 1.
Yeah, hard to obviously make a total estimation on this because a lot of guys in this series don't tend to use iRacing and a lot of officials, but Robbie Callan's iRating 3,000, Oscar Mangan's 8,300. So fair play for Robbie to stick with a guy who's almost 3 times as high iRating as Wayne Douglas. Now he's only 1,600, although I suspect that his actual ability, the iRacing, slightly belies him. But Wayne with attempted move down the inside, couldn't quite make it stick, but he's certainly a threat here. Speaking of threats, I think that's Dara Halley in front of Dan Mould, just having a little bit of a moment there, blinking a little bit in the orange Moza sponsored Audi RS3 TCR car. So that's something that we'll have to keep an eye on for the stewards as a move down the inside by Jordan Kelly on Sean McClemens, and he's gonna make that work. So Jordan now getting in between the brothers and has the glorious face of Evan Dalton to look at as he tries to pursue Dylan McClemens.
Yeah, nicest thing I've ever maybe heard. Anyways, Jordan Kelly down in 7th, Kevin. It's not really where you'd expect Jordan Kelly to be. We've kind of got accustomed to him being first, second, third all throughout, I suppose, RTA history maybe. Dylan McClemens, he's got a slowdown there, hasn't he? Because he's had to slow down. He's lost 2 positions. And Dylan McClemens now down to 8th spot. But yeah, Kelly, 2 podiums last week. Obviously didn't race in round number 1. Battling for 6th and 7th in Heat 1 is not where he wants to be.
No, absolutely not for Jordan, who will be delighted to have seen his hometown team of Donegal just get over the line against Monaghan in a fairly squeaky Ulster Football Championship quarter-final encounter, I'm going to say. And that is our obligatory mention of the Ulster Football Championship this week. But yeah, Ronan, he's in 4th at the moment. He's kind of propping up the DDR lads at the moment. Still in very much with a championship shout, but Wayne, Douglas, really it's Wayne, Oscar, and probably Dan Mould are the three that you would say have the out-and-out pace. But whether they can make that stick in race is a different story. Wayne just getting in the mirrors of Robbie Callahan, just making sure that he knows that he's there. But for Robbie, probably one more lap left after this, so not a huge amount of time to hang on if he can do. But this is a track that if you make a mistake, you can be very, very severely punished, as we saw with Dylan McClements' slowdown earlier on.
Yes, Wayne Douglas hot on the heels of Robbie Callahan. Oscar Mangan out in front in this one by miles, 1.6 seconds. Doesn't want to throw away a healthy lead like the Cork hurling team did on Sunday afternoon, as Mangan is looking to drive home, as we're getting the checkered flag for some reason on this one. I'm not too sure why. Ignore that for a second, folks. Wayne Douglas now 0.3 of a second behind. So we're looking at Dan Mould here, and Dan is just looking to break into the top 10. Of course, reverse grid doesn't matter yet, but he would like to get on that reverse grid come heat number 2. Oscar Mangan is out in front by a significant margin, and I'm not sure if this is going to be the last lap, because unfortunately we have no timings.
Yeah, just like in the aforementioned Cork Clare match, the officials making absolute balls of this one, and the checkered flag being shown.
Coming, didn't you?
But Brandon, well, at least Oscar doesn't have to, be at the mercy of that nonsense. But anyway, well, I did, and I watched it in a pub in Clare, and it was not a very fun time. I will tell you that. It was not a very nice time. Oscar Mangan, anyway, way away from any of that. Oscar is leading by 1.9 seconds now. Very comfortable lead, and I think it's kind of redundant whether it's indeed checker flag or not. I think that is checker flag, because we see a lot of flashing lights as people cross the line. So Oscar Mangan taking race 1, and our championship leader, Evan, once again consolidating his lead at the top of the championship.
Yes, great win for Oscar Mangan, 1.9 seconds. Robbie Callahan, first podium of the season, 1.9 seconds behind Mangan, but it will matter not. Peter McCann coming home at 17th. You can see they're pulling off to the right-hand side. That's a disastrous performance from him. Evan Walsh there in 15th as well. Not too great for him either. In the B Championship, you see a couple of results coming through, but we'll run you through the full of those in a while. Oscar Mangan won 2 races in round 1, 1 in round 2, and he's got 1 on the board here in round number 3. He will be looking to make it 2 wins in a row, because last week actually was the first time we had 3 different winners across 3 races for the first time since the end of the LMP2 season on the 21st of January. So Mangan, for his sake, will be looking to put bed to that statistic. He takes the win, ahead of Robbie Callahan in 2nd, Wayne Douglas in 3rd, Ronan in 4th, Sean McGoldrick in 5th, and it is Jordan Kelly in 6th, Sean McClellan 7th. It's then Dylan McClements, Keith Stewart, Dara Halley, Dan Mould, Rory O'Shea, Conor Mealy, Brandon McCaughan, Evan Walsh, Tony Stack, Peter McCann, Jacob Hobbs, Simon Hutchings and Andrew Murphy. It was then Dave Collier, Kevin Joyce, David Prunty, Simon Wall, Danny Dempsey, Phillipson, Jamal Gandor, Nathan Sweeney, Finley Melvin with a poor race, and Dermot Toomey down in 30th.
Yeah, a disappointing one for Finley and Dermot. Finley getting caught up very early in an incident and dropping way back along the line. And good to see Danny Dempsey deciding to jump in, taking our advice and jumping in and gaining himself 25th. So he does make points on still quite a few of the B Championship contenders, and better to be in it than to be not as we get ready for race 2.
Yes, as the lights go off, we go racing once again here in Snetterton. Great start by Wayne Douglas off the 2nd row. He's immediately alongside Robbie Callahan, and there's a little bit of push and shoving down towards the first corner. Here comes Wayne Douglas diving in. Is going to take the place ahead of Callahan, but Callahan just has to be careful. He doesn't run wide, and he has ran wide. Similar to what happened to Dan Mould. He's not going to lose as much places though, but he does fall down towards the bottom of the top 5. Side by side with Sean McGoldrick as Wayne Douglas way wide. Contact made between Douglas and Callahan. Nowhere really to go. That's impressive. Keith Stewart who's off.
Yeah, big accident. Keith now taking out a few other drivers. I think that's it was Peter McCann, I think, caught up in that. One of the RTA cars was caught up in that incident anyway, coming back out on track. Wayne Douglas again banging doors, this time with Dylan McClements. Wayne driving extremely aggressively as Robbie Callahan going off again. Robbie was eased out by Douglas, but Douglas coming back on track. Oh, big spun around. That's Dan Mould into the back of Robbie Callahan, who gets spun around. Dan is a championship contender. Let's see what the stewards have to say about that. But Robbie Callahan in the wars on this opening lap. Turn 1, turn 7 or 8, and now again being turned around there for the number 7 car. Very, very disappointing. I think that was out of the exit of Hamilton, heading down towards Oggies. So Robbie getting turned around there. Plenty to look at here, Evan. But yeah, some fairly aggressive driving for the opening lap of a race. Oh, that is one of the RTA car. That's Evan Walsh into the back of somebody else, and that's Keith Stewart being turned around by the Moses sponsor cars. Peter McCann goes into him as he rejoins the track. Who is it in that Moses sponsored orange machine? As Evan Walsh completely loses the brakes and goes into the back of the High Prix Sim Racing City of Rory O'Shea. So Rory getting turned around, goes into Conor Melia, both those managing to recover, but unfortunately in the foreground then, Brandon McGahan turning around Keith Stewart, and Keith coming back across track. And unfortunately, as you will see here, the number 27 of Peter McCann is the first on the scene. And there's a lot of bumping. Oh, even in the background there's a whole load of bumping. I think it might have been Jordan Kelly, was it, in the VRA car, and more carnage there, and just a real knock-on effect of that opening incident that involved, I think, Robbie Callan going wide again. He's going to have a lot of instant points now. He's going to have to watch that, but Evan Walsh was the man really that kicked that whole thing off.
Yeah, Evan making the initial bump in towards turn number 2. Robbie Callahan from the highs of second to the lows of heat 2. It's not a great start for him, and he'll have to work through the field now, avoiding any extra incident points. Try to get on that reverse grid, but it's a long way forward for Robbie Callan. Out of line comes Andrew Murphy and barrels down the inside of Simon Hutchings. That's a neat move from Andrew Murphy, and he is going to get it done, it seems, as Hutchings runs along the grass. Still going to be side by side, actually, in towards turn number 5. So Simon Hutchings, the Welshman, has done well there, and that was tidy AF from Andrew Murphy to get the job done on the tidy AF racer. Wayne Douglas in fourth. I think he's actually done rather well given the position he was in on that opening lap. Could have easily been spun round in similar fashion to Keith Stewart when he made contact with Robbie Callahan, but he's still in fourth and lives to tell the tale. Interestingly enough, Sean McGoldrick up in third now with a significant gap. Dan Mole, Dylan McClements side by side. Dan Mole is about to learn the lesson that you don't overtake Dylan McClements very, very easily. Side by side on the exit of the Nelson corner, Dylan McClements stays ahead.
Yeah, the former RTA champion saying to the new kid on the block, look, this is my patch. You're not going to get past me that quickly. But he talked about Wayne Douglas there, an instant earlier on, which was missed kind of after because we had so much carnage after. But Wayne getting kind of squeezed out in the opening lap. And he had Ronan Doherty there. And instead of giving up the position, Wayne kind of dives in front of Ronan Doherty, and then because he goes in so deep into the corner, this is another instant with Robbie Callahan here. Wayne squeezing through here past Dylan McClements. Oh, there's another big contact. That's Dan Mould swapping Robbie Callahan around. And again, involved in that is Brandon McGahan once again. So Dan Mould and Brandon McGahan involved in a lot of incidents so far. Just after that opening incident, I'm hearing from Ronan Hederman there in the background. Thank you very much, Ronan, who is not only our broadcast director but also our kind of Sky race analyst. So yeah, very much appreciated there from Ronan. But yeah, speaking of Ronan Doherty, I suppose Wayne he just wouldn't give the place up, and he cut right across from Ronan, went really deep into the corner, and instead of trying to give the place back, he just turned back into the side of Ronan in the 18 car. Now, you can't see any external damage, which is good on that Hyundai Veloster, or is it the Elantra? I can never remember which one is the Saloon. But yeah, as it looks like Dara Halley's going to try and move there. It was actually Dara Halley was the man in the Moses sponsored car, so we were doing Brandon McGahan a disservice. It wasn't Brandon, it was actually Dara Halley in that orange Moses sponsored machine. But yeah, the long and short of it was Wayne Douglas very, very aggressively scrapping. Not the only one though on track thus far, and that is what we like to see, as Dylan being very robust against Dan Mould and testing the suspension on his Hyundai, I think it's fair to say, Evan.
Yeah, Dan Mould, sort of the first real scrap he's got into an RTA. He kind of passed cars very easily last week, but he's parked right behind Dylan McClements' Elantra now, and he's going to have work to do if he wants to try and get past it. Dylan's getting a bit of a distance slipstream from his brother in front, who's in the Hyundai Rally livery this evening, but should have his Team DDR scheme on for next week, he tells us, or well, at least he claims. Dan Mould is not really gaining on Dylan McClemens. He's going to have to get brave under the brakes. We've seen him try get brave in towards turn number 9, not really here in towards turn number 2. Dan Mould, although he didn't really allude to it much in last week's post-race interview, definitely has championship intentions. How did Dylan McClemens win his championship? Well, that was consistent race results. So Dan Mould is going for the same approach here. Doesn't want to do anything too drastic and throw away even more championship points, because he's not had a good evening so far. Needs everything he can get.
No, it's been a great evening, however, for the man at the top of your timing screen. That is Oscar Mangan. He now has a 9/10 gap between himself and Ronan Doherty. Ronan's starting to claw back a little bit. I don't know, did Oscar make a slight mistake there in the last corner, because he lost about a 1/10 of a second to Ronan. But these two with a 2.5 second advantage over third place and Sean McGoldrick, who himself has a second advantage over Wayne Douglas. So good opening round, good round thus far, should I say, for both Oscar and Ronan, who are, it's these races where you just start to step away a little bit. Even if you might necessarily make a huge amount of ground as Oscar Mangan and Ronan Doherty this evening, but you are making quite a lot of ground on the likes of Dan Mould, on the likes of your Robbie Callahans, who are just caught up on that instance. So good opportunity here for Oscar to just pull out a little bit more of a gap again and start to announce himself as a championship contender, as Simon Hutchings going for a little bit of lawn cutting, but manages to get back in front of Andrew Murphy in the what would we call it, the Renault? I don't know what to call this. Anyway, the Hyundai Renault. The Rendai?
Yeah, the Rendai doesn't sound great, does it? The the Renault Elantra? No, there's someone. Yeah, someone can probably come up with something. Here is Finlay Melbourne looking for the move on the Rendai, and Robbie Callaghan in towards turn number 1, but he's not going to be able to get it done. Finlay is up 12 positions here in this race so far, so it's not been too shabby a performance from the Scottish resident. Here comes Rory O'Shea looking for the move on Tony Stack. Rory not quite at the lofty highs of the F4 Championship, but still putting in some consistent pace. He's now up 1 position in this race, but only lapping in the 2-minute mark, so he's a little bit off that of the front runners. It's been a better race so far for Evan Walsh, who's just 2 positions up the road in 9th, but of course he was a beneficiary of the first lap madness. Oscar Mangan's put the hammer down a little bit and is starting to extend his gap in the lead of this race. He was 0.6 of a second quicker on the last lap than Ronan Doherty. Ronan swept Snetterton the last time we were here. If the pace is anything to go by, Oscar could well do it again.
Yeah, that Evan Walsh Civic, the front is almost as battered as the face on the back of it, I think it's fair to say. But he is managing to still get going, as Dylan McClemens and Dan Mould continuing their battle here. And Dylan is going to give this one up easy. Dan's going to have to tuck in behind him. And now he's going to go for the move down the inside, but it's a late one. Can he get himself in there? No, as Dylan once again clips the curb very, very heavily there. I think we're at Nelson there, am I right in saying, as we head down the bomb hole towards the latest lap. It's lap number 6 here at Snetterton, down through Coram, and then the tight left-hander of Murray's coming up to finish out the lap. But you can see Dan all over the back of the ADA car. He's doing his best to try and put Dylan off, but as you said, Dylan is just a consistent performer all the way through this series, and does well to hold off one of the newest returnees to the series, and a man who's already made a stamp on last week. Johnny says a Renot. I think he means Renot. That's the way he spells it. And Ollie says Renault. So thank you for those.
Something tells me one of them is bullying one of our pronunciations. Probably mine, but... Oh, look at this, Dylan McClemens and Dan Mould getting all sorts of hairy out of the exit of the corner. Mould went for the move, McClemens stays in front, and there was a little bit of contact made. He almost got turned around in similar fashion to his fellow Antrim Keith Stewart, but Dylan McClemens still stays in front. One of the performances that put McClemens on the map was his defensive masterclass at Brands Hatch against Jordan Kelly. He's looking for something similar here against Dan Mould. Mould, big lunge down the inside. starting to get a little bit impatient, but Dylan McClements has the racing line, and there's almost contact made. Wheel to wheel, door to door. You can't get much closer than this as 11 minutes strikes the clock. 4 to go. Dan Mould cannot find a way past the one-time RTA champion.
Yeah, you can see the frustration building in the 62 car, because you can see the other guys up the road ahead of him in the shape of Wayne Douglas, Ronan Darty and Oscar Mangan. 3 guys that he would have thought he would be battling this evening, but instead he finds himself down in 7th position up against an absolutely robust Dylan McClements. Give this man the Minister of Defence position, because he is doing an absolutely superb job as we look at some of the cars piling down now into the final section here at Snetterton as Andrew Murphy. Oh, that's a big mistake from Finlay. Is it Finlay Melvin, I think? He just swaps ends and manages to keep it on the road. I thought that was going to be a disaster for Finlay, but he just lost it in the right spot. And just as well, because that could have been very, very bad for the number 11 car. As it stands, he kind of gets away with it and stays ahead of the 2 guys that he was in front of heading into it. Now Brandon McGahan trying to have a go, Dan Mould, should I say, trying to have a go on Brandon McGahan, who seems to have gotten ahead of him. Not sure how that happened, but Brandon now battling Dan in the 2 of them in those red cars. And, oh, that's going to get tight there again. And Brandon tries to swap the inside to out, luckily not catching the back of Dan as they go through. And Dan Mould has been in the wars here. He talked about being a consistent performer, but he's really scrapping here and showing aggression. Even the wipers going here for Dan. So he's trying every time-saving tactic in the book.
Absolutely, this is a great fight between these 3. Very clean, very fair for the most part, and it has been a fantastic scrap to watch, and it is not over just yet, because Dan Mould will have one more sentence to say in trying to overtake Dylan McClements, but the gap is 0.5 of a second. Gap up the front, just as we cut to it, is 2.6 seconds, so Oscar Mangan is the favourite for this one, ahead of Ronan Darty in second. Sean McGoldrick could be under a little bit of pressure late in this race, because he doesn't have a toe in front of him. Wayne Douglas will have all the straight line speed in his Hyundai. With that very powerful slipstream heading down through, I should say in towards the Brundle and Nelson corners. But Sean McGoldrick just about in front here for the time being, and he's 1.5 minutes to hold on, as does this man, Dylan McClements, who we've focused on for the most part this race. Look how much Brandon McCahan seems to be gaining through this corner, clips a little bit of the red raised curb on the inside as it helps rotate the car through.
Yeah, that's of course Brundle, and then going into Nelson as we head down Coram, which is the big, long, looping right-hander. Very similar almost to the Carousel corner at Road America. That sort of big, sweeping right-hander, and then it cutting across at Murray's as we cross the line here. Very bit of a kink before we get down the Senna Straight, which is similar to Imola, of course, which hosted last week's 6 hours of WEC, which had an double Italian winner in that one. So, all very good. Oh, that's a bit of Tokyo drifting in the background of Brandon McGahan doing his best Japanese car impression. Does Brandon, and these aren't cars that are suitable to that. You don't want to be drifting these things, especially not with the track temperature at 42 degrees. So Brandon lucky that there's only 1 lap left in this, because his tyres are going to be absolutely destroyed now. But look at Wayne Douglas, and look at Sean McGoldrick getting the overtake done, did Wade. So he's up into 3rd position, gaining more points for himself in this battle for the championship. And look at that, Dan Mould trying down the inside, but it was never happening. And the door opened to Narnia there, and Dan stepped into it. Dan just, that was like platform 9 3/4. It's a place that you're never really supposed to go. When you go through there, you end up in another dimension. Dan now losing 2 spots there, because not only losing the position to Dylan McClements, but also being overtaken by Brandon McGahan. So that's not good for Dan Mould, and just a big lack of patience there in the end, Evan.
Yes, and that will cost him, because he's behind Brandon McGahan now, and he's going to lose an extra 2 points for his troubles. Can Sean McGoldrick maybe have one last move on Wayne Douglas? No, I don't think so. Wayne's got a better run for the crucial corner, and seems like he is going to be able to just get third. Disappointing for Sean McGoldrick, who's driven a great race. Speaking of great races, Oscar Mangan coming through the final corner now to win the second heat here at Snetterton, significantly ahead of Ronan Darty, 3.4 seconds. It's dominance from Ireland's number 1 iRacer. Ronan Doherty then in second. Wayne Douglas will come home in third, with Sean McGoldrick narrowly missing out in fourth. But in the crucial on-screen battle, it's another McClements masterclass on the defensive end, as he keeps one of the championship favourites, Dan Mould, right behind.
Yeah, a little bit of a wiggle here, and I was just actually Ronan had it in our ears, but I was actually just about to say to you, this mightn't necessarily hamper Dan that move, because of course he did lose seventh position, but it does put him in prime position heading into the opening race. Sorry, for the feature race, because we have the top 8 swap. We'll show you the format of that in a second when we go through our interviews, but. Jamal Gondor finishing in 21st position with Peter McCann behind him. Not a great evening for Peter. Caught up in that big accident in the opening race, and now way behind Jamal Gondor, 13 seconds down the road. Alongside, look who that is, the number 2 car, Jordan Kelly. Oh, what? It's all gone, Pete Tong, for Jordan Kelly this evening.
It is. It's all gone. Pete Tong. I hope everyone understands that reference. That was well played, Kevin. Well done. Dave Collier as well. Really not a great race for Dave. 24th, 19 seconds off 23rd. It's not really where you want to be. And then this man, Keith Stewart. That's not pace that has him down in 25th. Don't worry, his race start wasn't that bad this time. It was that opening lap incident that sent Keith round and picked up a significant amount of damage as he spun back in front of the field. Unfortunately, he will have to recover in heat number 3. But your heat 2 results before we get there. It is Oscar Mangan, your race winner. Second position then in this one, Ronan Doherty, Wayne Douglas in third, Sean McGoldrick in fourth, ahead of fellow Sean McClements in fifth. Dylan McClements in sixth, Brandon McCollum in seventh, and it was Dan Mould in eighth, and on the reverse grid pole, Dara Halley, ninth, Evan Walsh, 10th, Rory O'Shea in 11th, then it is Tony Stark, Conor Melia, Robbie Callaghan, Simon Hutchings, Andrew Murphy, Finlay Melvin, Dermot Toomey, David Prunty and Phil Upson, rounding us out on the top 20. Then it's Jamal Ganzor ahead of Peter McCann, Jordan Kelly, Dave Collier, Keith Stewart, Jacob Hobbs, Nathan Sweeney, Kevin Joyce, Simon Wall, Danny Dempsey down in the 30th. Let's hear from your race winner then, Oscar Mangan, 2 wins this evening. So far, of course. Oscar, congratulations, 2 from 2. Has it been a nice calm evening so far at the front?
Yeah, it's been pretty good so far. I think the pace is strong. I think the Civic is pretty well suited for this track. And Ronan was keeping me on my toes in that last one, so I think this is going to be a very tight race 3. Everyone's very close, and it seems actually a little bit difficult to overtake here somehow. So we'll have to work our way through.
Yeah, race 3, of course. Ronan in front of you. Dan Mould will start on the reverse pole. There's Wayne Douglas as well in the mix. What do you have to do to try and get on the podium and maybe even win this feature race?
I think you just have to try and kind of just wait and see, do the lads in front of you make mistakes. The tires seem to kind of be really strained, especially the front axle is just under enormous strain, even in an only 20-minute race. So I think if you kind of just play it cool and mind your tires and kind of bring them in slowly, then it could pay a lot at the end of the race. You could be 3 or 4 tenths quicker, hopefully, at that stage.
Yeah, Kevin mentioned in practice and qualifying track temp quite high. Is this the first evening where there's really been some tire struggles?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think Brands, you're not really going quick enough to stress them out, and then Donington, again, just didn't really seem to have the same kind of struggles. There's a lot of low speed stuff, but here there's a ton of high speed, so you're really just leaning on the tires a lot, especially the front through all the infield sections. So yeah, it's a tough one.
Oscar, thank you very much for joining us, and all going well. We'll speak to you in about 20 minutes' time.
Thanks, guys.
And now the 2 best friends unite. It's Kevin Galvin and Donegal, as he likes to say, Ronan Doherty.
Ronan. Once again, we meet. Once again, Evan pairs me up with you. So talk us through a little bit of the carnage. I know yourself and Wayne Douglas had a bit of a battle, but other than that, you managed to avoid most of it, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I guess I was happy enough. I made a terrible start in the first race, which drove me back, and I was trying to do a bit of tire saving in the first race, but I left it too late. There wasn't enough laps to get by Wayne, and then the second race, Wayne ended up pretty much just playing into my hands to allow me in the second, and I managed to stay with Oscar for maybe 4 or 5 laps, and then I just kept locking up my rears, going under the bridge and losing like ridiculous time every lap, and I'm surprised I didn't get caught by third, actually, to be honest.
Well, we're talking to Oscar there, and he was saying that tire temps are a big thing here. Very hot track temperatures, but also a track that seems to really punish the tires.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's what I've been struggling with in comparison to like Oscar and Dan, who obviously know these cars this season anyway. Like I can just run the same lap times as them for the first few laps, but they can just almost keep them dropping, and for me they're going up the lap time. So obviously it's my single seater sort of style, or I lean on the front of the car too much, I think. But yeah, look, it's just going to be something to adapt to.
But look, second place is good for yourself. What are your hopes for this final race? Because it seems like it's a very difficult track to overtake on.
Hopefully I can just get to the inside of the first corner, because it seems like if you're on the outside there, you're just kind of always going to get pushed out, and these cars are quite understeery, to be fair. So yeah, that's my only real plan.
All right, well, let's see if it'll work out for you. Ronan, congratulations, second place again. And I'm sure this is definitely the last time I'm going to be talking to you in this championship. I'm sure you won't join me like you do pretty much every week from here until the end of the season.
Hopefully I will.
Well, there is not Donegal's Ronan Doherty. Very much Antrim's Ronan Doherty as we head into the final race, which Ronan Hederman is on the ball with. We had the 10-minute race, which the grid was set by qualifying. We had the 15-minute race with the grid set by race 1, and now we have the 20-minute reverse 8 from race 2, which means Dan Mould will be top of our standings. And Brandon McGahan is going to be joining him on the front row. Then the two McClements brothers, then Sean McGoldrick, Wayne Douglas, Ronan Doherty, and Oscar Mangan. That is our top 8 reverse. So interesting now to see what Dan can do, because this feature race gives him a massive opportunity to try and claw back some points, particularly, Evan, when we talk about how difficult it is to overtake on this track.
Yeah, it's been very difficult to overtake, especially for Dan Mould. Struggling to get past Dylan McClements, but that is a credit to Dylan as much as it is Dan struggling. Dan popping in a quick incident report on Dara Halley in the meantime. Dara Halley simply replying with, "What? I don't agree." So, channeling his inner Kevin Joyce from the last few seasons. So that should be interesting post-race. Might be a few penalties handed out, but that matters not now. It is Dan Mould on pole, Brandon McCahan in second, Dylan McClements third, Sean McClements fourth. It is an all McClements second row. Sean McGoldrick in fifth, Wayne Douglas in sixth, and then it is the star-studded Doherty and Mangan in seventh and eighth. It's then Halley and Walsh ninth and 10th, and O'Shea and Stack rounds out the first 6 rows of the grid in 11th and 12th. This should be a good one. 20 minutes of Snetterton to come up, folks, and make sure to get your Driver of the Day nominees as we get towards the end of the race. Dan Mould on pole, McCahan looking for the launch as we go racing for the final time tonight. Great start from Dylan McClements there on the second row, immediately into the slipstream of the pole sitter of Dan Mould and looking for the move down towards turn number 1. McCahan's had a great second phase at the start, so we'll be able to defend it, but he's ran a little bit wide, and Dylan McClements has snuck his way through. Dan Mould's old enemy from minutes ago is looking to attack him in towards the hairpin, and Mould takes a late defensive line. Doesn't want to let Dylan McClements get back in front of him. That was disastrous the last time round. Wayne Douglas runs a little bit wide as Ronan Doherty has ran off the circuit and is going to have to rejoin alongside Evan Walsh. A little bit of door-to-door contact, but nothing disastrous as Doherty and Halley are side by side. Doherty's going to run very wide off the curb here as Sean McClements is fighting with Brandon McCahan down towards the hairpin. It's McClements second and third. Great race start from both.
Brilliant start for the DDR boys. Ronan Doherty did get down the inside of the opening quarter as Jordan Kelly once again having incidents there. Big accident in the background. It's a huge accident. I think that's Kevin Joyce I saw in the background. Peter McCann I think is involved in that as well. We'll come back to it in a second. But Ronan then being being pushed out by Sean McGoldrick, but I think Sean might have been pushed out by somebody else, so I think Ronan was just unfortunately squeezed out a little bit as Rory O'Shea tries to go down the inside of Dara Halley, who's blinking a little bit, but definitely a big incident in the background. Jamal Gandor now falling all the way down the bottom. He's had a big problem, has Jamal racing all the way from Lebanon, I do believe, which is quite an achievement. Some of the best culinary one of the best culinary countries in the world, in my opinion, Lebanon. But anyway, Keith Stewart now trying to go down the inside, and you can see that happening a mile away. That's Jordan Kelly involved in that, coming back across track and very lucky not to take out Andrew Murphy in that. And we're banging doors as well. That's Nathan Sweeney getting involved in that. In the Halford's 25 livery. He's coming up against Kevin Joyce. I think Kevin was involved in an earlier incident as well. So I wonder, is this a continuation of a battle between these two? Because I do believe that both of these guys were involved in a big incident earlier on. Then Simon Wall in the background. Oh, he's getting that all kinds of wrong. Simon Wall just going too deep into that corner. He's going to lose out. Now Ronan Darty going to try and go down the inside of Evan Walsh, just making sure that he knows he's there. Evan just about being avoided, taken out by Ronan Darty. He came back on track after that incident. Dara Halley going wide there in the background. That will give Rory O'Shea an opportunity to overtake. And maybe Robbie Callahan too. Robbie, a very good opening start. Yes, Dara Halley going wide, which opens the door for Robbie to go through. And trying to make back some of those points lost in the second race. Robbie, was unfortunately caught up in a number of opening lap incidents, is Robbie Callahan. But plenty of incident here as we look at Ronan Darty once again trying to go for a move on Evan Walsh. He's going to be later on the brakes. Evan's going to open up the door a little bit for the DDR driver, who's going to slip away through, and very disappointing from both Sean and indeed Ronan. Neither of them running the official DDR livery. Dylan the only one getting his act together there, so that needs to change big time. I'm sure Niall will be on that. Speaking of Niall Doherty, he says about their last race, he says, Dan welcomed Dylan outraced. So that is fair enough. And also going back to our chat about Renault, none of you are pronouncing it right, so I won't tell you how it's pronounced, because you'll accuse me of being a wanker with my French accent, but it's not actually pronounced Renault. It's grand. We're past the watershed, I can say that. But yeah, it's
I don't think YouTube monetization likes that.
I don't think we have to worry about YouTube monetization somehow or other. But yeah, driver of the day nominees. Just to give you an idea, if you haven't been following the YouTube chat, you're just watching a live stream, or maybe you're streaming to your TV and you're not keeping an eye on the live chat. Ronan did ask people for their driver of the day's nominees. So far, we've had Peter McCann with Peter McCann, Sean McClements with Sean McClements, Peter McCann again with Peter McCann, Sean McClements with Peter McCann. But unfortunately for Sean, Peter McCann has not come in with Sean McClements. So it seems that Sean is getting slightly ghosted here from Peter, unfortunately. So yeah, thanks everyone for getting involved. A bit of an incident there. Was that a bit of a push to pass, am I right in saying, from Oscar Mangan?
No, that's brilliant move from Oscar. Brandon barreled it down the inside, looking for last of the late breakers, and Oscar has sold him a dream and gets his way past. Gets the switch back. Cracking move from Oscar. Apologies to any grandparents watching the stream for Kevin's foul tongue, but we'll address that after. Ronan Doherty now looking for the move down the inside on Brandon McCaughan, and McCaughan has gone the long way about it, and it looks like Ronan is going to sneak his way through, similar to what he did on Evan Walsh, literally on the last lap. So Ronan having an easier time of things than some. Is Sean McGoldrick going to look for the move on Brandon McCaughan? There's going to be 3 positions lost in 2 sectors for Brandon. It isn't, and he's able to persevere and stay in front of Sean. Dan Mould has ran away at the front of this one. 1.6 seconds is race lead. It's then the 2 McClements brothers second and third, but Oscar Mangan 2 seconds behind in fourth. This is going to be an interesting one. 15 minutes to go. Can Oscar Mangan prove his quality by getting on the podium?
Yeah, cat meat pigeons here, because there are a whole load of guys here who are desperate to try and make up some points. And that's Sean McGoldrick trying to move. That's very, very aggressively over the curb. There is Brandon McGowan. He's going to lose out to Sean McGoldrick. He does eventually lose that place, and he gets a slightly bit of a tap from Evan Walsh for good measure, who gives him a bit of a Munster Hurling Championship shoulder as he breezes his way through. Does Evan Walsh, Tipperary earning an excellent draw against Limerick last weekend, if you haven't been following the GAA results. So Evan will be happy with that one from a Clonmel man, even though I think Clonmel is also quite Tipperary football, more so even than hurling with Clonmel commercials. But anyway, I digress. Robbie Callan now trying to make a move on Rory O'Shea and getting that one stuck. So Robbie really is showing his pace in this championship, isn't he, Evan? Unfortunately caught up in those incidents in race 2, but the results in race 2 belies his speed, because he is really getting to grips with that Hyundai.
He is, absolutely. And Robbie up to 9th. You say it's a Munster Championship shoulder, although given the standard of refereeing and hurling this year, probably would have been a red card. So Robbie is doing well in 9th, just ahead of Rory O'Shea in 10th. Wexford, of course, Are they a good hurling county? I suppose that's up to the viewer to decide, but he is attacking Robbie, who I want to say could be from Kilkenny, but I'm not sure. That's a bit of a guess, so we've gone from a Munster hurling scrap to a Leinster hurling scrap. A lot of GAA on tonight's stream, and I'm not too sure
Yeah,
why.
I'd say, tell you that Wexford's hurling team is definitely better than its football team anyway, because I've seen
Oh
its
yeah, by
football
far.
team in Division 4 football. That is a cross to be borne by
Who
anybody
was their
who
one
decides
good
to watch
player they had
that.
with the long blonde hair? I can't think of his
No, I
name.
can't remember. It's not important anyway, because we're looking at Rory O'Shea, who's the only Wexford man we have an interest in at the moment. And Rory trying to put a little bit of pressure on Robbie Callan, but it looks like Robbie might end up turning the screw on Brandon McGaugh, and he's not going to quite get it done here, but Robbie clearly has the speed. He's going to switch to the inside here. That is a beautiful move by the number 7 car. One of the moves of the evening. And you talk about Oscar Mangan selling a dummy. Robbie really well judged up. He's going to get a tap here, and he's going to manage to hold on to it. But a little bit of a push to pass there from Brandon, who gives him a little bit of a tap, as it's all getting a little bit untidy. Dara Halley almost running into the back of Rory O'Shea and checking up, which forces Conor Melia to check up a little bit. Up the front, Dan Mould leads by 2.1 seconds. It looks like he's going to find it difficult to get past the Minister of Defence, or at least Junior Minister of Defence, given his age, Dylan McClements, who is holding off Sean McClements and Oscar Mangan just behind Sean. So Oscar doing a superb job from 8th position to find his way back and forth, and Robbie returning the favour here, and it's all getting a little bit feisty as Dara Halley goes down the inside of Rory O'Shea, and Robbie's not going to be taken for a fool here by the 89 car. He's going to put pressure all over the Audi sponsored Hyundai, which is a little bit strange. Not sure exactly what's going on there with the sponsoring on the 89 car. Somebody obviously found a spare sticker in the garage and just slapped it on the left rear corner. But Robbie going down the inside and again taps Brandon McGaugh. And there's no love lost between these two lads. And you talked earlier, Evan, about the incidents. I'm sure these two lads will have plenty to say to each other come the end of this race. Robbie sends it down the inside. Brandon's going to leave him through, and he's going to get him on the switchback. Great move there from the 89 car. Saw Robbie coming in his rearview mirrors, and we're seeing plenty of that this evening, Evan Dalton.
Absolutely, I'm being corrected that Robbie is a Kildare man, not a Kilkenny man, and that's just horrendous research by me, because I'm also a Kildare man, so I should have figured that one out sooner. Dara Halley, right on the tail of these two now, and Brandon was sold a dream by Oscar Mangan. Robbie selling it back to Brandon, and he's able to get the switch back. Conor Melia's decided he fancies reintroducing himself into this one. As look at this. This is Oscar Mangan attacking Sean McClements for third, and Mangan, who has caught 2 seconds in about 4 minutes here, is going to look to try and get past the number 8 and knock Sean off for a potential first podium of the season. It's not going to be easy for Oscar Mangan. He's raced Sean McClements before. He knows it's not the easiest thing in the world, and he's going to have to go for the outside line heading through turn number 1. This has been a cracking race 3, and it's only going to get better. Who breaks later? Sean McClements has that better inside line. Mangan's going to look for the switchback once again. McClements is going to try park it to the inside, and there's a late manoeuvre, and Oscar Mangan is going along the grass here, trying to get it done on the inside. Last of the late breakers, and through goes Ronan Tardy. What a brilliant move from Ronan. He's teed that up perfectly. He's got past his championship contender. What a piece of racing from the newly named boy from Dunloy.
Oh, that's superb stuff from the number 18 car, Ronan Darty. Has another, once again, a family affair there, as Sean holding up Oscar, which allows Ronan to slip through. Brilliantly judged by Ronan Darty. And the racing this evening, yes, last week was a little bit of wacky races, a little bit of bumper cars, but this week has been absolutely superb. Yes, sure, we've seen some aggressive driving and some dooring as well, but some of the switchbacks and moves and dummies and just the tactics that are going on here. And we're saying that this is a tough track to overtake. Well, it is a tough track to overtake if you just try the same thing over and over again, but if you use your brain in the way that Ronan did there, he could see what was going to happen before it happened. It just made sure he was in the position to swoop in. And as you say, the boy from Dunloy is feeling some joy at the moment because he's in 3rd place.
Okay, nice. Ronan's cousin Sean and teammate Sean doing him a big favour there as well, because of course his defensive manoeuvre is Oscar Mangan. Look at this, there's not a car's width there. Oscar still looking for it, doesn't go for it fully in the end. And now as he heads through the left-hander, he's going to have to try and get past Ronan Doherty. Big mistake from Ronan Doherty, a man who's fairly nifty around Snetterton in RTA, is potentially going to lose the position to Oscar Mangan here. We have a brilliant view of this from onboard Sean McClemens' car. Ronan Doherty is going to look for the move, or is going to try and keep the inside line here and keep the position ahead of Oscar Mangan. Mangan is going to try almost an identical thing to what he tried on Sean McClemens, but Ronan holds his apex nicer, and now once again goes for the defensive line. Mangan has to pivot to the outside. It's Sean McClemens' turn to now go for the move on the inside of this, and he absolutely is. Team DDR are almost bullying Oscar Mangan here out on the circuit, but Mangan, one of the best that we have in this country, is going to persevere and stay in front of Sean McClemens. He wasn't able to get past Ronan Doherty though, did not capitalise on that mistake from the multi-RTA champion.
No, and we heard Ronan talking in the break between these two races about how important that inside lane in turn 1 is, and you could just see him fire himself down there and just turn for the apex that little bit later, just to make sure that Oscar didn't get the opportunity to swap back to the inside. Oscar doing well to hold off the advances of Sean McClemens, and this is superb driving from these three guys. For Dan Mould, he is a good bit up the road now in the SRL Simulation Racing League number 62 car. He is 3.5 seconds up the road ahead of Dylan McClemens, so finally an opportunity for Dan to show his pace, but unfortunately for Dan, not really his night overall, although this will go some way to helping him, because Danny's already lost his drop round, of course, the opening week. So every single round counts for him. Now, Robbie Callahan in 8th position, the man from Kildare, and with less said about Kildare's hurling team, I think the better, and pretty much also their football team. But yeah, Robbie in 8th position at the moment, which would have been great in the last race. Doesn't do him much good in this race, although it does give him some points. Robbie yet to have a drop round this season, so does have that flexibility to play with as we go along through the course of the rest of the season. 6 minutes left on the clock, which means around about, I'm going to say, 3 or 4 laps, depending on how quickly we cross that line. We were running 58s in qualifying, but I don't think anybody's anywhere near there in the race setup, as Robbie's in 8th. As we look at Rory O'Shea, he's had a torrid time of it, Ronan, or Evan, hasn't he? He's had a very difficult time of it, because caught up in an awful lot of battles, and he, obviously one of the faster cars at the beginning of the F4 championship, he's struggling to get to grips with this TCR car.
Yeah, he is, and Rory O'Shea has always sort of been quicker in the single-seaters than he is in these tin tops. He's good in the prototypes, as Rory O'Shea is. I know outside of RTA he does race a good bit of LMP2, but the last real tin top we had was the Mustangs, and it wasn't a great season for O'Shea there, so he just struggled to get up to speed a little bit, but will be there. It's not quite the lofty heights of the F5 championship just yet for Rory O'Shea, but I imagine he'll be back up to speed shortly. Keith Stewart in 11th. What a great race this has been so far for Keith Stewart. Usually very much struggles in getting up the field, sometimes falls down it. He's got 14 places so far in heat number 3. This has been much better for Keith, the Pure Motorsports digital racing team driver.
Yeah, Keith's going to go for a move here, and he's going to spoil what was going to be the perfect segue for me if he does get this done, because while Keith is up 14 places, Wayne Douglas is down 14 places. I'm not entirely sure what happened to the 20 car. Memory doesn't serve me of any incidents, but he must have been involved in one, did Wayne Douglas, because he is way back along, almost 3 seconds behind Tony Stack in 19th place. And Wayne, we had high hopes for him. He pitted at some stage, in the Sky race control, Ronan Hederman is telling me, or the Gantry TV race control, Ronan Hederman is telling me, but I'm not entirely sure for why exactly. Maybe that'll come out in the wash later on. But Oscar keeping Ronan very keen, and this battle is certainly not over. You can be sure of that.
Yeah, Wayne Douglas, first driver whose name begins with the letter W since his fellow namesake Wayne O'Keefe in the Formula V's. I think I did one with Theo Lestrange last season, so I decided we'd bring back the name statistics for no apparent reason. This really has been a great battle, hasn't it? It sort of died down the last few minutes, but a few minutes ago, Ronan Doherty, Oscar Mangan was really at its best here, and it's looking like it's going to start again, because Oscar Mangan is hot on the heels of Ronan Doherty. Fastest lap of this race on the last lap for Oscar Mangan was a 58.9, or sorry, 58.5 I should say. It was a 58.9 for Ronan Doherty, so 0.4 of a second gained on the man in third place so far. Dylan McClements is also in their sight, and he's being clawed in at a rate of knots now, so this could become a battle for second real quick at the rate Doherty and Mangan are driving. But Oscar's just got to be clever about this. He's gaining significant points in the championship over Dan Mould and Wayne Douglas tonight. Doesn't want to throw it all away, going for a silly move on Ronan Doherty.
No, absolutely not. Hello to a new viewer, Adam, who seems to be slightly confused by what he's seeing in front of him, and I think this is a bit of a compliment to iRacing's ever-improving graphics. He just says, or factor, and Johnny says, iRacing. Adam says, BTCC cars are on iRacing? Yes, they are. We have 4 of them. Not quite a full field in the same way that R-Factor 2 does, and they are superbly modelled, those R-Factor 2 British Touring Car cars, but we do have 4 cars. We have 4 cars that are very easy to paint in a way that R-Factor 2, and I can say this from experience, isn't so easy to paint. Although it is easier to get the textures on them, the actual painting of them is a bit more of a challenge. And yes, we are looking at British Touring Car Championship action here. We're in round 3 of the RTA British Touring Car Championship season, as that's very late in the brakes as Oscar Mangan, and that always makes you butt clench a little bit when you see a car closing in on another one that quickly. But yeah, we are in round 3 here of what has been an extremely entertaining season. And do remember, if you are enjoying, do give us a subscription, do give us a thumbs up, do give us a like. It goes a long way to helping us get the word out to other people. Hopefully not of a sensitive disposition, because I know that Evan was talking about people whose names are beginning with W earlier, but I think I might have crossed the threshold with what I had said. But yeah, do keep an eye, and also remember to keep an eye on Motorsport.ie if you are interested in this. Leo Nulty, of course, providing coverage of everything going on in the Irish motorsport scene. So Motorsport.ie is the place to look out for that one. Dara Halley in 10th position. He's been blinking a little bit. Ronan Doherty in 3rd position hasn't been, thanks to our race director for that very quick cut there, but he is holding on to 3rd position ahead of Oscar Mangan. This is a superb drive from the 18 car, and Evan, he told us in the break that he's able to keep up with the likes of Oscar on the opening laps, but as he struggles to keep tire temperatures down on this 42 point something degree Snetterton 300 track, his lap times are dropping off, but he's doing a superb job here in holding off Oscar, who really is exceptional in these cars.
Yeah, Ronan downplays his own ability quite a bit. He is a fantastic driver, and unfortunately for him, Dan Mould is just about going to make the start-finish line to start another lap here. So as we cross the line with literally 2 seconds to go, there is going to be one more lap of this Snetterton 300 circuit, which is not a bad thing for us here in the commentary box and for you watching at home, because this has been a good one. And Dylan McClements has been clawed in by Ronan Doherty and Oscar Mangan, so it's a 3-way fight for second. It really would be tough for Dylan McClements if he was to lose a podium now, but he was the Super Junior Minister, something like that, of defence in heat number 2 when defending from Dan Mould. In through the left-hander comes Dylan, Ronan and Oscar. Sean McClements just out of this one, but if there was an incident, he'd be a big beneficiary of it. Will Ronan go for a move on his teammate in towards the hairpin? 2 points could be crucial at the end of the season. Remember last season, himself and Jason Smith ended tied on points and he lost the championship on countback. So Ronan knows how important every single point is. Oscar Mangan looking for the move, maybe on Ronan Doherty in through here. The real overtaking opportunity is in through Brundle and Nelson, turn number 8 and turn number 9. We've 2 corners in the straight before we get there. They're all bunched up here. 2 Hyundais and a Honda real close together through the right-hander of Williams. Your exit, oh so important here. Oscar going to get the double toe from Doherty and from McClements, but we've seen it's not easy to overtake here tonight. Here he comes. Can the championship leader make a crucial move and to get onto the podium tonight at Snetterton? There's not much of a gap opening, and as they break for the left-hander, he dives for it, he sends Doherty flying across the corner, and Oscar Mangan gets the move done, but controversially, Ronan Doherty hit all his hard work in this race, gone very, very late move from Oscar Mangan.
That's definitely going to be looked at by the stewards. And to be fair to Oscar, you could see after the incident he tries to stop and almost let Ronan by, but then realizes that obviously Ronan's so far behind, and you can see the smoke pouring out of that car. And that's really disappointing for Ronan Darty, because that throws away a huge advantage that he would have had. No doubt the stewards will have something to say about that. Congratulations to Dylan McClements. I couldn't keep a straight face for that last wrap, because I just read what Dylan McClements has underneath his driver's door. So, yeah, I couldn't quite keep a straight face. And Sean McClements finishing in third position, with Oscar Mangan dropping back. I'm not sure why that was. And eventually Ronan Darty in ninth position. You can see the smoke. To be fair to Ronan, did a good job of holding it together, because he was massively damaged there. But it was a bit of a strange one, because Oscar, we could see how quickly he was gaining on Ronan, and he just gained massively in the braking zone. I don't know, did he lose his braking marker? Tried to throw it to the inside to stop himself from hitting Ronan, and then ended up clipping the rear left corner of Ronan Darty's car. You can see here, like, he starts to gain massively, and then you can see he moves out to try, and it's all a little bit clumsy. And unfortunately for Ronan, he's just caught up in the middle of it. It looks like it was almost in two phases, because it looks like Oscar realizes he has the overspeed, then he slows down, then he decides he's going to move, and then he kind of half sends it, and then Ronan comes across and he hits Ronan. I don't know, was it net code? I probably would have been contact there anyway, even if it was net code. But certainly the stewards are going to take a fairly dim view of that, I would imagine, especially in the last lap, Evan.
One thing I think the stewards have to look at as well is maybe Ronan's braking points from the lap before. I've no idea what the braking point is in that corner. I'm not saying that that is the case, but seems like he's broke a lot earlier than Dylan McClements, which you would do following a car behind. But Mangan has been caught out by that and ends up hitting Ronan. And when the adrenaline is pumping like it would be on that last lap, you want to brake as late as possible, and it seems like it is just an innocent mistake from Oscar. He's definitely not punted Ronan, he's not that type of driver. But he has lost the podium to Sean McClements, and Dan Mould, your race winner, who we didn't really speak about much in that one, but a fabulous drive by Dan. Dylan McClements in second, Sean McClements in third, Oscar Mangan fourth, then it is Sean McGoldrick in fifth, Evan Walsh in sixth, Heather Robbie Callahan in seventh, it's then Brandon McCaughan in eighth, Jordan Kelly, who recovered to ninth, 12 spots gained for him, 13 gained for Keith Stewart, who came in 10th, and Conor Melia finishes in 11th. It was then Peter McCann, Rory O'Shea, Kevin Joyce, Wayne Douglas, David Prunty, Dermot Toomey, Simon Wall, and Ronan Darty. It's only 20th in the end for him. And then beyond 20th place, it was Dara Halley in 21st, Dave Collier, Andrew Murphy, Simon Hutchings, Phil Upson, Danny Dempsey, Jacob Hobbs, Nate Sweeney, Finley Melvin, and Jamal Gandor. Not much running for the bottom two in that one, but Dan Mould, don't think we have him in the interview room, so it's going to be Dylan McClements first up with Kevin.
Dylan, now I know your grandparents are watching. I'm hoping Ronan can give us a quick look at this. Do you want to explain yourself, young man, as to what exactly is written on your driver's door?
My driver's door? I honestly
Something
don't
to
have
do
a clue.
with Virtual Racing Academy being something or other.
I really don't. Oh, alright. Well, I didn't make the livery. It's the one Sean and Ronan had a couple of years ago, so I'm just
I'm just going to draw the viewers' attention there. Just have a look at the just next to the number plate there. Just caught that in my view. I'm sure that won't make you any friends in VRA. Well, he's done you a bad one, because he's actually not racing the livery himself, even though he designed it. So he's going to have to get on that. To matters racing, Dylan. It was a good night for you, wasn't it? I think it's fair to say. Yourself and Dan Mould had a good old ding dong battle in the second race, and you finished on the podium in the last one.
Yeah, it's been a good ground, because it's hard to find pace for these cars at the very start, because I think the two Velociter and the Civic have an outright pace against everyone. But no, I'm just getting used to the cars, and especially with my car, it's a weird way to drive it. So I'm just getting the pace up now, and hopefully I can grab a couple more podiums and maybe even win. But no, overall, podium's really nice to have, especially for my first couple of rounds. That it was nowhere really near podium, so I'm happy to have this podium.
How have you had to change your driving?
See, I don't know how this makes sense or how it's different, but with the Elantra and the hairpin, I've turned a bit earlier in its game time, and also for some reason in the race and in qualifying, I found more time out and over. So I've done that the past 2 weeks because in Donington I just found pace out and over, but no, it's a weird car to find pace in, but it's definitely not like an F4 car.
All right, well, Dylan, congratulations on your second position. And is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Just a shout out to all my family watching, my parents and my cousins and all, and yeah, it's a happy day in the Clements household because we got both podiums. So yeah, thanks.
Yep. And of course, I'm sure your sponsors, Hederman's Marionette Wires, will be
Yeah.
extremely pleased with your position as well. Dylan, congratulations, and no doubt we'll be chatting to you before the end of the season because it looks like you're starting to gain a bit of pace in these cars. So well done.
All right, see ya.
Congratulations to Dylan. Will we
I
take?
landed poor Dylan in that then because I was like, I'll let Kevin do the first interview once, and he immediately calls him out in front of the grandparents. I think we will have Dan in a few moments, but we might take Sean first because I know he has to go up and do some incidents, and there was quite a few this evening. Sean McClements, before tonight, you decided a little bit of a car swap. You got onto the Boffins in Hyundai and said, look, I'm going to go for something different. I want the Velociter. How did you find it?
To be honest, I actually loved it. The RTA Elantra, she's a bit understeery now. But the Velociter, Velociraptor as I call it, she's good turn-on wear now, and she's decent on the brake. So, whenever I seen her 2 points, I thought, well, if it's going to suit me a bit better, I might as well swap. I'm not going to lose a whole lot, like, so I had nothing to lose.
Yeah, the pace much better this evening. You mentioned the 2 points, of course, after the first two rounds. Obviously, there was a lot of other factors that affected that, but overall, you seemed a lot more comfortable out on track. Heat number 3, then, you managed to stand on the podium.
I don't know how. To be honest, I didn't really have the pace as for the top lads. Like I had similar pace to Dylan, but I made a few mistakes, and then I started a battle, so Dylan sort of pulled away a bit. But now, if it wasn't for, like, in fairness, Oscar slowed down to try to let Ronan by, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be on the top spot. But which is, to be fair, fair play to Oscar there for that, for the sportsmanship there.
And a little bit of delegation from your brother in regards to a certain livery. Do we have any comment from the supposed creator?
Um, Well, no, to be fair, Ronan made it, but his point stand VRAR. I can't say it on here, but
Oh, we've had
the
worse on the stream tonight. So.
oh well, a VRAR shit then, lads. Jordan, where are you at? Peter, don't see him on the podium. No, I can't say that because they'll be all over me now next week. But
Classy as ever, Sean.
I was gonna say if this is the FIA, you wouldn't be racing the rest of the season.
I just
but,
want to say Peter McCann has immediately joined the interview waiting room. I'm not sure if that's related, but he's immediately joined.
Peter could hear anywhere at any stage.
Well, Sean, at least the on-track antics were grand from you tonight. Into the commentary boxes has let you down a tad.
Oh yeah, sure.
He's just lost the head now with the power. Right, Dan Mould, I think, is our race winner. Sean, thanks very much as ever. Dan Mould, our race winner. Dan, tough evening for you overall. Of course, like the way the format of this runs, if you have an issue with race one, it tends to have a knock-on effect. You did well to battle up to finish P8 in the second race, which gave it a feature win. Is it kind of a frustration? Did the last race kind of show you that obviously you're on the pace, but just the incidents kind of held you back?
Yeah, it's TCR racing now, so it's expected. I've only really come into the interview room tonight just to give out two drivers a shout out. Dylan Clements in
Clements,
race 2 completely outdrove me. I just couldn't get past him, and it just goes to show that I think he had a bit more pace on him, but it just goes to show you don't need to have pace to race. He was, I was going to swear then, he was unbelievable at defending, and it got to the point where I just as you saw, I don't know if you saw it on the stream, but I went for a stupid send and ended up losing another place. But yeah, I've got to applaud him. Absolutely amazing. And then, forgive me if I get it wrong, Halley.
Dara Halley, yeah.
Yep. Race 1 again. Superb defending. Just knew exactly where to position his car. I gave him a little flash at the end just to say great racing. And yeah, I don't really care about where I finish. I want to win the league, but I don't care where I finish when I'm having racing like that because it teaches me different ways to drive these TCRs as well. But yeah, I had a cracking night. Frustrating, but still walking away with a smile on my face. So epic. I enjoyed it. Thanks again.
I'm sure you won't be surprised to learn that Dylan McClements is recent former champion of the league and one of the youngest former champion. I think he's still only 15 or 14.
He turned 15 last week.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do now. I've got an 11-year-old lad who doesn't really get on to the racing. He's not really showing any interest yet. But I'm going to have a conversation with him tomorrow. Now it's a bit late now about that. I've just been outraced by a 15-year-old just to give him a bit of inspiration to get on the rig. But yeah, I say I'm 44 years old and I've just been schooled by a 15-year-old. And it's absolutely amazing.
Well, Dan, his family are watching. I'm sure they will be absolutely thrilled to hear that. And swearing on stream seems to be the theme of the evening. So I was kind of waiting for you to actually say it, but no worries.
Maybe it'll come in the future.
Look, for your sake, hopefully you'll be here to say it more to us. Yeah, you've kind of answered the question for me, but obviously you're a returnee to the series. You spoke before about the fun they have racing these lads, but like the standard here is so high, and as you said, it's not just out and out pace. There's really good racecraft here, and I suppose it goes to show you that these guys do race in real life. They race a lot of Formula Fords and kind of junior Formula stuff both here and in the UK, and it kind of shows out in track, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean I've been part of many different leagues, and a lot of the leagues that I have done, they tend to do the the reverse grid as you guys do, but and no disrespect to anybody else out there, but the driving quality of the lads at the other end of the field and what I've seen so far outshines anything that I've seen in 5 years at iRacing. It's like you say, you can just tell that these guys race. Might not necessarily be overly quick on iRacing, but I can imagine on a racetrack they'd show me a thing or two. Yeah,
Well, Dan, fair play to your humbleness, first of all, and your generosity. And thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on your race 3 win.
Thanks,
and
guys.
as you said, no wonder. Sorry, no, not no wonder, but no doubt we'll be talking to you because it's very clear you have pace. So I'm sure your championship ambitions are far from over. Dan, thanks again for joining us, and I look forward to chatting to you next week.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye bye.
That is one of the favorite interviews I've done in quite a while. Dan Mould with full of praise.
Kevin, but that was beautiful. We don't often get something as wholesome as that on an RTA stream, but Dan, very complimentary of Dylan and Dara and the league as a whole, and it's just great to see lads enjoying their racing, no matter how quick or slow they are.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's funny because we talked earlier about Niall Doherty saying, "Dan, welcome to Dylan, outraced," and Dan says himself, I was schooled by a 15-year-old. So, and in fairness, Dan, normally it takes a great driver to recognize that. You certainly don't see a lot of people at my iRacing level admit when they've been outdriven by somebody. The egos get in the way, but I think when you have skill yourself, I think greatness recognizes greatness. So fair play to Dan. We're just having a quick look at that last lap incident, and look, it's been reported to the stewards from Ronan. I think very much not something that Ronan wants to do, but given the nature of the incident, I suppose he has to. These guys know each other very well. They've raced an awful lot together, have a huge amount of respect for each other. But just unfortunately, close racing, these things happen, but it's hard to see the mitigating circumstances really for Oscar in that one. It is upon him, the responsibility is on him to make the pass safely as the car behind. So unfortunately, we might see some penalty points applied to Oscar Mangan, which will once again throw the championship wide open.
Yes, it would. And not the first incident Oscar's been involved in this season, so it goes to show he's not incident free. and there is a lot of jeopardizing factors that comes into play if you want to win an RTA championship. Driver of the day then, Kevin, who takes your fancy? I know Johnny Hollywood got his comment in, and as he said, he got his homework in nice and early. He's gone for Sean McGoldrick.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think Dylan McClemens had a really good evening. He was around there. Robbie unfortunately got caught out in those incidents, but Robbie Callahan had a great evening. Probably could have had an even better evening if he had not been caught out in those incidents, which really you can't really pin on the Kildare man, as we found out tonight. I think Sean McGoldrick. He just, it's been such a change for Sean from last week where he was almost the pantomime villain and everything in that incident. But to be fair to the number 30 car, he has had an outstanding evening, and he would be my nominee for a driver of the day, not just because of that outstanding livery as well.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. As we see it on screen, RTA Gantry TV driver of the day, Sean McGoldrick. A great bounce back for Sean and some big points, and his name won't be in amongst the big incidents tonight, it seems. So congratulations, Sean, Gantry TV driver of the day. What a cracking evening of racing. Really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, superb evening, and we still have 5 more to go, so we haven't even reached the halfway point of the season thus far. You could just briefly see there, hopefully we get it back in a second. Yes, we do. We have gone to Brands Hatch Indy, we've gone to Donington, we've gone to Snetterton. Now we head north to Thruxton, as we head a more of a northern section of this championship with Thruxton, Oulton Park and Knockhill. So Thruxton next week. That is set to be another. I love seeing this on iRacing, and again, Adam was in saying that iRacing needs a British Touring Car Championship series, and we really would have it if it wasn't for the licensing agreements, unfortunately. But we have the cars and we have the tracks, and Thruxton is one of those tracks you get to see so seldom in iRacing leagues. Generally, it's always the Spas and the road. Well, the Spas. What is it? Spa, Le Mans. Like Monza, the kind of big tracks really that you tend to see. But Thruxton is one of those tracks you very rarely get to see. So I am really looking forward to seeing what is a staple of British Touring Car Championship driving come back in front of our eyes here on Gantry TV.
Has Thruxton actually been added to iRacing yet? Or are we still waiting on that?
I will have to look that up. But in the meantime,
because that could make it even more interesting if the drivers have got very minimal running around here. Which
Thruxton is on the service as far as I'm aware. And I was completely wrong in saying that we're going north. We're actually going south first. Thruxton is in Hampshire. My apologies. And then we go north to Oulton Park and Knockhill, which is in Scotland. Thruxton right down on the south coast in the beautiful county of Hampshire, and that is where we are headed next. Have a great weekend. If we don't get to see you between here and there, do remember to head to RTA Motorsport.com if you are interested in taking part. And also remember to head to Motorsport.ie because that is where you will find all of the updates on Irish motorsport racing, both road, rallying, just loads of different kinds of, racing that goes on all around, rallycross, drifting, etc., etc., etc. I know it's a big drift weekend there as well last weekend, so plenty to sink your teeth into. Enjoy the week, have a good week if we don't speak to you between now and then, as I said, and we will join you next week in Hampshire for the 4th round of the RTA British Touring Car Championship in association with Motorsport.ie. I've been Kevin Galvin, joined by Evan Dalton, Ronan Hederman doing the work in the background. Do give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed the week. But until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. on Gantry TV, have a great time and Song go full.